first to start off the facility concept design. All right, good. So we're going to start first. We're going to keep referring back to this. Here's an overall diagram of the current facility. You can see the track in pink. In the middle would be obviously the turf field, existing bleachers in this orientation to the north and south. There's several different components to the project, and we're going to go over each one individually. One baseline, which we're not going to go into detail on, essentially, is just the track and surface replacement. The idea is just they're getting to the end of their useful life. We're going to replace those with new track and field surfaces. So that's pretty straightforward. The other improvements that are associated with this project are the construction of a ticket booth. So currently that temporary booth has been positioned really in the same location that we're proposing for a permanent ticket booth to be installed. The second improvement you'll see is currently there's an existing concessions and storage facility as well as a storage shed. Both those would be removed. And a new building, actually buildings, one which would be storage and a restroom and the other concessions would be installed on the site. Both of which I'll note, we'll look at in more detail, are further away than the existing buildings. The existing storage shed sits about 6 feet from the property line. Our building will sit a little over 25 feet from the property line. The last sort of improvement that you see building-wise as you come around the track is we're relocating, we're proposing to relocate the press box to the opposite side of the field. This is for a few reasons. One, it's easier to construct over here, not being sort of on that very steep slope associated with the parking lot. Two, provides a better opportunity for film and for broadcasting because you're not looking into the sun, you're looking to the north. And three, if we choose to provide an audio system that has simply announcements coming from the booth itself, we're directing that towards the school and not towards the neighbors in the community. So for those three primary reasons, we think it's beneficial to move the press box. So the first component we're going to look at is this ticket booth improvement. So the first image I'm going to show you is standing on the roadway and looking at the ticket booth area. So what you see here in the red brick and the fencing is your existing accessible walkway, existing ramp up to the play surface area. All that would be existing to remain. The improvements that we're talking about really have two components. There's the ticket booth component itself, and we'll look at a few different views, and then a canopy that would be have the ability to provide cover over those stairs, be a little more ceremonial, and provide a little bit more signifier of the main entry of the facility, and provide opportunities for signage. We've just kind of put generically on there, Parkwood Great Memorial Stadium, the type of signage, the lettering, etc., graphics, all that will be developed. We're really just sort of finishing our concept design stage at this point. We've got several more months of design to go. But you can see here that ticket booth component with the side access door, that main ticket booth component really, if you look head on, would be located facing the drive aisleway. And then again, with the canopy over top of the stairs, there's the ability maybe to incorporate some lighting within the canopy itself to illuminate the stair surface itself. So this will help keep the stairs free and covered or from the weather, signify that entry even more, and again, provide a permanent ticket booth. And what we're proposing is to use really a lot of the materials that are on the campus already, brick primarily as the building material. We are thinking about incorporating perhaps some more colorful opportunities on the feature walls that you'll see on this building and also the concession building, using some of the school colors, so primarily red and blue, using maybe a fiber cement sort of panel in this sort of main feature wall of the facility where you'll have the interaction for the ticket purchase, sales, etc. And then starting to think about maybe graphics. How do we put signage on the building to signify the uses? Because we have a lot of public uses in this building, whether it be restrooms in the other building, concessions, etc. So then we have one more view looking down back the other way. We're not showing all the school development and the modular classrooms that are out there currently, but you can see looking down, we also have to provide the opportunity for signage on the top side as you exit the facility. Let me go through the whole facility design and then you can answer questions at the end. Okay? So the second component that you'd see after you come up the stairs underneath that canopy, if you're a home spectator, you go to the existing bleachers. If you're a visitor, you'll be working your way around to the other bleachers, and along your way, you would pass through a new plaza area. This plaza area is bookended really by our longer concession building and the restroom and storage building and the concession building on one end. And we split those two up based on the conversations that we had. We had probably 4 or 5 different iterations, actually 6 different iterations of how this can be arranged. This by far was the preferred concept because it helps provide 2 separate queuing lines, one for the restrooms and one for the concessions, and then we have both those co-located next to one another. So if we looked at this, I've reoriented the plan here, so we've turned this 90 degrees. If you're that visitor again, you're going to be coming in through this way, providing a new concrete walkway. The building itself sort of shields the activity in the plaza area from the neighbors. Again, this distance to the property line is now 25 feet. It's only 6 feet currently to that existing shed facility that's there. And the component of the main building, as you come in, and we'll look at some views again, perspective views of this. As you come in, you have the opportunity to have a bit of a sheltered or a plaza area that has a bit of a canopy over it, maybe a feature wall. There's an opportunity to recreate that memorial plaque that's currently located on the site. And the larger building has 2 components. One is storage. This is storage for athletic use, storage for different components of the track and field and football programs. Will help build within there opportunities for shelving and other things to help organize that storage area. There's a small electric room. Really, these 2 doors on the backside are only accessed by T.C. Williams staff, whether it be someone that needs to get in and check out electric to the overall facility, or someone that needs to access through a garage door on the backside equipment that's needed on the field for track needs or for practices, etc. From a public perspective, everything you need is accessible off this plaza. So whether you're walking along the concrete walkway and you come in, you have the opportunity to go to a group men's or women's toilet room. We also have a unisex single occupancy restroom, and we also have drinking fountains located in that sort of vestibule space before you go into the building. Also adjacent here, we're providing some sort of ornamental plantings and trees, some landscape features, some low seat walls that help divide sort of the formal pathway and a more plaza experience. We're thinking about using permeable pavers on that plaza to help treat some of the stormwater, let that sink into the ground and not shed that water off onto the track and field surface or elsewhere. And really what's activates that plaza is this concession building. So the concession building would activate or would utilize much of the concession building is now. Inside, there would not be any cooking of food. They simply would be selling prepared foods, pizza, hot dogs, chips, etc., bottled drinks. And we have the opportunity as well, off to the side here, is a smaller plaza for the grills. So parents who are selling some of the cooked foods have an opportunity to be adjacent of the window and access to the concession stand, so they can be seen and part of the overall concession area, but they're off to the side a little bit, so we can kind of keep that away from the activity. And whether or not we choose to put out tables and chairs there, or just let people stand and maybe sit on this low wall, it's up to the school and how they'd like to outfit that plaza area. But really, you can see here that this is where the existing sort of access road comes up now. We would be maintaining that access to hug this facility really as tight as we can to the inside corner here of the track. This is the start of that straightaway on the track surface itself. And we'll begin to plant this area with row plantings, some additional trees. We also look to buffer, take the existing buffer, which is in this darker gray, and add additional trees to continue to provide more vegetative buffer between the building and the property line. So the first view that we're going to look at is actually if you're standing on the field, just looking straight away, straight at the building. So you can see here, what we haven't shown is the fence. The fence would still continue to separate the track and field surface from the plaza area. We've taken that away just to help focus on the buildings here in this case. Just for context, we're showing here the existing scoreboard, just so you can see where this building sits in relation to that. It's forward in front of that slightly and off to the side. What you can see is the thought of maybe having, again, some graphics to denote the men's and women's restrooms. You can see we're using that sort of colorful 5% material that signifies the entry to this facility. And we also are providing natural light through a continuous clear story glass, whether that be frosted or completely clear glass. That glass would sit some 8 or 9 feet at least up in the air, so there's no privacy concerns, but allows us to have this facility with natural light and minimize the reliance on artificial light, on electric. We're trying to make this building as sustainable as possible. With its seasonal use, we really want to minimize how much energy it consumes, how much water it consumes, etc. We've also had considerations of cracks. You see here in this wood, sort of a big barn door. So essentially when the facility is being closed, this could be rolled in front, locked down in position, so no one can go inside the facility. You know, it could be rolled and opened up on events, on a game day, or whenever the school decides, the facility is officially in use. So the opportunity to sort of shut this down, winterize it, if you will, when there's not activities going on. And then off to the right, this is that low seat wall you see, separating that sort of pedestrian access and the plaza in the front. To the right is the concession building. Again, the idea of having perhaps this warmer wood material as a door, more of a flip-up door that would become a canopy to shelter folks that may be staying away to make a purchase at a concession stand. That building area is off to the right here, again shielded by a low wall. And then you start to see the part of that plaza area and the canopy that's overhead in the seating area. The next view that we'll look at actually will be approaching the facility as if you're a visitor or a spectator coming to use the restroom. The materials, again, brick material. We're thinking maybe a darker brick, but that will continue to be explored. But using primarily brick and then a few accents of the school colors on some of the primary facades of the building. So the next view you see, if you're a visitor, you're approaching the building and you're heading down the path to get to the visitor stands, or maybe you're a home visitor coming around the corner to use concessions or go to the restrooms. There's ability here to create a small sheltered plaza area, perhaps additional signage with a memorial plaque on this wall, maybe some opportunities with brand facility as well, with the school logo, the Titans logo, and start to work in signage where we can to signify we're concessions. So if you were going to get food, you peel off the path here, go to the left. You're going to the restroom, you continue down and enter the facility on that long facade that we looked at. The next view that we'll look at is just looking from the other way. So if you were a visitor coming back to use the restrooms, or heading to the concession stand at the end, this is what that might look like. Again, primarily brick, some accent colors on the ends of the building, that clear story glass to provide lots of natural light on the inside, and just a low slope, sort of single slope roof. We have not shown all the plantings. It would be trees and materials that we shown on the plan, but we wanted to focus these images just on the building materials and the view and the shape of the building itself. The last component, so if you just kind of moved away around the facility, the last component that you would see would be the press box. We looked at this a little bit before. The idea here is to use a modular press box. It's the perfect dimension, roughly 12 by, say, 50 feet. They can be pre-manufactured off-site. They can be shipped and easily installed over a short period of time to minimize construction activities on this side of the facility. It's also the most really just efficient way to create this type of building structure. So this is an example from the previous project, but you can see this would be added to the existing bleachers. So what you see here is a pre-manufactured press box. On the top there is the elevated fenced-in area for filming, whether that be for the school's staff or for any press that may be filming the game. And really this facility is, again, tacked on to the existing bleachers by adding a set of stairs that link into that existing walkway, pedestrian sort of access on the bleachers themselves. The inside can be outfitted and separated a number of ways. You see here the access up the ladder up to the roof for the filming. What a view from that would look like out of the playfield itself. The roof hatch up with power and data as needed to support those activities. And just some more technical drawings of what that looks like. Really the new piece that we're buying and putting on would be this element right here. At this line, you've got the existing bleachers. From there up, you've got a new set of steps and into this elevated press box facility that will be added on to the backside of the existing bleachers. Just a rough sketch of the plan itself. It's really 3 rooms, one for broadcast and game day operations, one for TC Williams coaching staff, one for visiting team coaching staff. So that's the building facility design. I know everyone's going to be very interested in field lighting considerations as well. About to take just pause here. If anyone has any questions about the buildings themselves, I can go back and look at different components of that. Yes, ma'am.
Let's look at the concession stand in the bathrooms, please.
Yes, ma'am.
25 feet away from my property, I have a cracker.
25 feet from the property line.
My property line,
Okay.
I have a cracker. Would you like to live behind a cracker?
What's your concern?
I'm living behind a cracker.
Is it noise? Is it smell?
It's smell, it's noise, it's a structure that has housed and protected all kinds of foolery in the past. It will house and protect all kinds of foolery in the future. Any consideration of moving the bathrooms, perhaps under the home bleachers, next to the ticket booth, facing the school?
Well, we've looked at trying to place this facility as far away from the property line as we can. If we were to put it underneath the bleachers, we'd have to completely remove and redo all the bleachers, which is not currently in the project budget.
Because I do have a problem living behind a toilet.
I would not be concerned about smells. It's not gonna smell any more than it would if you were, you're not gonna be within smelling range.
The Don Johns are farther away from this, and I smell that.
Well, those do smell. Those are porta johns that
Okay.
keep that waste in the facility itself. This would be tied into a sewer system where it would go away. So it would not be sitting in there.
I take issue with that, so I would like to have more information about that.
And there's another issue with the bathroom and storage, right, on that side. Is there any way that you can prevent students from coming back there when there's no event is going on? Because they come back there now and they, get romantic with each other and, things of that nature. And we don't want our kids looking at something that they should not be looking at, which they have done.
My
So
kids.
is there any way that you can lock that off so that the students cannot come behind there or during times when there's nothing going on on the field?
I think architecturally, we pulled it farther away with the building itself. In terms of policing activities that go on behind, it's more an operational function of the school staff itself.
All right, but is there any insurance that the school staff is going to make sure that it's policed behind there? Because the kids come over now and they jump the fence and leave the school because there's a fence right there.
There's
They
a structure
jump the
that
fence
protects them
and-
from being viewed.
Well, I think
And
right
walk
now,
through the community. I mean, it's really, you all are not there, and it's really awful what the people on that line are subjected to.
well, right now you've got a concession building and a shed, so then they kind of hide between the two. Going to one structure will help, and we can explore doing motion lights back there and things like that, so if people go there, the motion lights will come on.
I can't hear you, so people can.
We can explore motion lights, so putting lights on the building, they are not on all the time, but if kids come back there, their motion would set off the light. And then it's stay on for the time.
But I'm talking during the day.
They come back there during the day?
Absolutely, sure, during school time.
Well, that would be up to the school to monitor that.
Yeah, well,
And
all
that
the schools are
certainly will be monitored.
Yeah, right.
It hasn't been in the 15 years I've lived there. It has not been monitored. That's why my child, at the age of 10, saw a couple having sex back there, because it's been monitored. And even though I made a complaint, the former coach had made a joke about it. Thought it was funny that I called to report that. Well, how long was she watching? Are you serious? My child had to be exposed to that? Do you understand how upsetting that actually is? To have that happen, to have my child tell me, Mom, I think there's a couple back there. I'm thinking, what are they doing, dancing? I look and there's a zip-up action going on. And now I have to see what did you say, 25 feet away, and how long is that structure?
The distance here to the property line is 25 feet. Currently it's 6 feet
Yeah, but
from the shed.
and trust me, they go behind the scoreboard, they go behind the trees, they go behind the concession stand, they pee back there now, and it's great because they're already using it as a toilet anyway. But if you could just completely clear that area so that there is no shield of protection for them to have their pathway of freedom to skip school or have sex or sneak in cigarettes or whatever, that would be awesome. Because there are people that live back there. All I have to do is wash dishes, and I've seen more penises than I care to. Okay? So that structure actually just needs to completely go. Because it hasn't been monitored, and it won't be. There's no guarantee you guys can monitor that, because it hasn't been monitored. It
Or if you
hasn't been.
could put up a door, some kind of door in the beginning of it and at the end, so that no one can enter it unless there is an event here?
That is the intent with the facility itself. The barn door that I was talking about. which
No,
is-
I mean a door from where the bathroom is back to the fence.
There is no access to the bathrooms from that side of the building.
She's
But
talking
there's
about
space
some
back
type of
there.
protection, protecting the property line,
Fence,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, blocking it.
So blocking completely behind that wonderful, it looks great, don't get me wrong,
Restaurant.
but it would also look great someplace else. It would not, it would look even better. Oh, just, I don't wanna see that. I don't want it
I
there.
think one thing we could explore, I think that fence idea.
The brick one?
No, the fence idea, we could explore, a fence maybe,
Yeah,
we could explore that. And I know this project is presenting prime opportunity for us to discuss access in general,
Mhm.
which we'll be talking about a little bit more, past this stage, but, we can look at that. I think that was a good suggestion that we can look at and see if that one way. It's a challenging issue, you brought up before here at this meeting.
I bring it up every time, and people seem to ignore the fact that my child witnessed a couple having sex, and that now you wanna put toilets in the back of my house.
Well, I think we wanna attack that issue in sort of phases. One thing is access, which that's access issue, and there's other access issues to the field that we're gonna talk about in future meetings. But I think for the time being, we can explore the idea of maybe a fence or something to further prevent people from getting back there to hide behind the building. So we can look at that.
Signage, maybe? Add some signage to the fence that explains that, you're not supposed to go back there and there's ramifications for going back there.
Cameras would be great,
Yeah.
but you know what would be better? Not having a toilet behind my house. That would be awesome. It would be wonderful to not have a toilet behind my house. Storage, sure. Concession, I've lived with that. But a toilet behind my house?
Now, one thing I will say with this toilet, if you go back to your rendering, Casey, looking from the community side. Yeah. So this is looking from the sort of out from the side where you live. These are the restrooms, and I think we're gonna have exhaust in this. It's gonna have be plumbed into the sewer, and we're making every effort so that you really won't, this won't just look, it'll be a piece of architecture for the most part. It won't look like just a restaurant. And then you'll have proper ventilation, proper plumbing, so that you shouldn't have to worry. We will provide more information on that as you requested.
Yeah, because it is still in fact 2 toilets, 2 rooms of toilets in behind my house.
I also want to reiterate one of the things Casey pointed out, which is this garage door will close in front of the entrance to those toilet rooms. This is not as used. So
use the great outdoors.
Which they've been doing anyway.
How tall is the building?
Total height of it is approximately 14 to 15 feet
Okay,
from grade to the top of it.
and the scoreboard's not gonna move?
We're exploring that. It's not.
currently the scoreboard is not, in this project, it's not in the budget, but there has been a lot of talk about the scoreboard, so we expect that that's going to be revisited.
You can see it's not as tall as that scoreboard. This is another representation.
And I have one more question about the press box. Have you done a sound example or something about how it is actually going to project onto the school that is brick?
We have not, because we're actually exploring the opportunity to provide more localized sound amongst the stands rather than just broadcasting from one source. Rather than having just sort of one loudspeaker from the press box, it'd be much better to provide smaller speakers within the
Right,
stands.
but are you still gonna have somebody with sound expertise to see what the sound sounds like outside the stadium?
There's not currently someone to provide that service.
Okay, because it does bounce off the building.
Yeah,
concerning Adrian's situation or concern, isn't there a variance of 3 feet? Aren't you 3 feet into their woods neighborhood? Doesn't that have to be reconciled at the time of construction, that you need to go back and give the variance away?
Variance related to what, sir?
Basically, you've taken the fence, the property, as far as I know, Fran, correct me if I'm not right, and you've moved it in 3 feet, or Woods neighborhood is actually 3 feet out from where you're building. So there is a 3 feet variance there where you can encroach upon their property. And basically the issue is that going to be restored to allow them to have more space, or how's that going to work?
I'll be honest with you, sir, I'm not familiar with that issue. What I do know is that from our surveyors, they've put the lot lines down, and the zoning code requires that we keep all structures a minimum of 25 feet away from the property line, and we've met that zoning ordinance. I do not understand the particular item that you're talking about.
Well, I think what he's saying is it's 25 feet away and they actually have 3 feet, you need to go 28 feet. That's, I think what you're trying to
That's
say.
it.
That's it.
At the moment, our understanding is we've met the zoning requirements.
There was a 3-foot, actually, what do they call it, easement.
Easement, yes.
Okay, that was provided and taken from that neighborhood. Now that you're moving the structure 25 feet out, we should get our easement back, that 3 feet. Okay, which means that you will need to move your structure another 3 feet.
31.
It certainly could be done if it's a requirement. It's not one that we have discussed or been made up to date.
At this time, we have some more
One more
presentation.
I have just one question about the press box, because you're saying with the existing bleachers, but it was my understanding that the reason why we didn't replace it yet is because the existing bleachers couldn't support it, so you're going to fortify the bleachers, is that what you're doing?
Yeah, the press box itself would be on its own brand new standalone structure.
Okay, so that's actually the second thing that we were trying to do, but then we're not doing it yet.
So this drawing, for example, this line forward would be the existing bleachers, and then this
Okay,
This
so
framework.
This is a separate structure. I knew that was Plan B,
It's-
but I didn't know if it was still Plan B.
it's still one.
And how tall is that from bottom to top, to the very top?
You are looking at, the existing bleachers are roughly about 12 to 15 feet tall. Then it's another 10 feet, so you're looking at about 25 feet to the top of the roof.
Is there air conditioning in the press box?
There can be, yes.
Is there going to be?
Depends on the project budget. It's essentially it's a modular building, similar to, say, the modular classrooms that are out there now. Obviously, much different use, but it could be equipped with heating and cooling, all depending on the project budget and what the school system got.
But it's not in the budget, is it yet?
Well, we're still in schematic, so we're trying to be conservative. What we have, what I would say is a list of alternates, as we call them, bid alternates, and then we will continue to carry those forward, and if the prices come in favorably, hopefully we can pick up most of the alternates that we like. Yes?
In your experience, are press boxes like that ever not air conditioned? How could you have that be functional without being air conditioned?
Or heating.
I mean, it's certainly, they're options. It really depends on the climate, the school system that we're talking about, so I can't say uniformly all have.
Is there a concern associated with air conditioning or heating?
Yeah, ask your question.
No, I'm just asking a question.
What is the
Oh,
question now?
No, I just, no offense, it seems like you might, are you worried about the sound from air conditioning or
No,
heating?
I'm actually more concerned about the press box location and the fact that there's some feeling or some idea that the sound is going to be less than what it was before. The sound will travel over to the stands and to the school and will ricochet back across the school. So anybody in any type of the neighborhood close by will have some issues with noise. I wanted to know whether there was some type of a strategic group that would look into this and measure this. I got the answer no, I'm not comfortable with that.
Well, you got the answer no, that they weren't. I mean, it's considered an alternate for the bid, correct?
Well,
I mean,
the sound system is
sure,
sharp.
if you're not concerned, I just want to make sure it's addressed.
Oh, sure, absolutely, and I thank you for your help, no question about it, yeah. I think in any type of place where there's gonna be neighborhoods involved, one has to understand that noise has to be mitigated. My question was, how will it be mitigated?
The sound system itself has not begun to be designed. As I stated before, our preference would be to do something where, rather than having one single source that has to inherently have to be broadcast at a large volume, to have smaller speakers distributed amongst, the seating area itself, so that the overall volume that it's projected out could be much less than what you may be currently experiencing. All right. So here comes the easy stuff, field lighting.
No, that's the hot one.
All right, field lighting considered. So last time we met, we showed a couple different iterations of what the field lighting strategies could be, how the lights could be arranged, and what are then sort of the foot candle and perceived glare maps associated with that. We still have one of those that we're going to look at. But we're going to start first by looking at some before and after conditions of comparable facilities to give you hopefully a better perception of what the lighting technology is that we're proposing to use in this facility. So this image here shows you the evolution of field lighting technology over the last roughly 40 years.
How tall are they first?
Each of these, I'm not sure in this particular diagram, each of these is photographed from 100 feet away. I'll say, I don't know. I cannot tell you exactly how tall this is.
Well, that does make a
Yeah,
difference.
that's a huge difference. How tall are the lights? That's key.
Can
What
can
I'm
we
fo-
note our questions until the end of?
What I'm focusing on right here is, I guess you can see, is this is from 100 feet away, this is what the light source looks like on this particular fixture. All these are at set,
Go from the beginning.
all these are set at the same height. What we started at in the beginning was essentially metal halide LEDs. And while those can continue to be shielded in different ways, it still does not provide the visual control, the opportunity to cut off that light source at certain angles like you can with the current LED technology. Even in 2005, when they had the best lenses possible on HID lamping, you couldn't get there. But with the 2015 technology, this green system from Musco Lighting, we have the opportunity to, from 100 feet away, to hardly see any perceived light from that particular fixture. So here's one example. This is Chamonix High School in Langhorne, PA. This is before, this is using the HID light source. And then this is after, using the green lighting, LED lighting we talked about before. So again, look how apparent the stands are in this, and then look at them in this. So you can see that the glare around the track and field surface, around the stands, the surrounding areas is reduced, and the light source is kept on the playfield surfaces, which is where it wants to be. All these projects are trying to achieve what our project is, which is 50-foot candles on the play surface itself.
Average.
Average 50-foot candles. In some cases, it's actually less, but the average is 50. So, not to mention, the energy usage itself is reduced 74% from the previous technology. Here's another view of that same facility. This is from the field. This might be equatable to a distance from, one of your homes, and then you can see how much the light is reduced using this technology. Again, before, the ground plane in front, very visible, stands itself visible. Afterwards, that area is dark. This is using the newer technology. This field was retrofitted with the LED lighting. One more view. This is another school, Bethel School District. This is just talking about sort of that 41% energy reduction. So you can see this is with that LED lighting. You can see that outside of the track and field facility itself, it's dark. It's not lit up. So these maps, again, the locations that we're proposing are 4 poles located outside of the track and field. That will provide you that average of 50. You can see in here some instances 40, 51, 50, 40, 47. When we average across the whole play surface, 50-foot candles on the play field. Then we look at what the perceived light is in 400-foot candles further out. You can see once you get out to the edges, here's the property line, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. In fact, the average scan average across the entire grid is only 1, and that's anywhere outside of that play surface.
Wait a minute. Show me the 0 again.
All
Only
these
on the
are
property line.
zeros. And
How about on the other side where the concession stand's supposed to be?
0, 0, 0,
That-
0. This is just related to the sports lighting itself. What we're working on is a composite one. What we'd like to do is provide local small bollards to light the plaza area and the pedestrian path. What this is showing is just sport field lighting. Outside of the play surface, inside the play surface, we're maintaining an average of 50. Outside the play surface, our average is 1. But when you get out to anywhere close to the property line, you're at 0.
Can you remind us the difference about when?
On the property line.
Yeah.
Let me just go through the last couple. On the property line itself, zeros. And then this is that, what we called last time, this one I think most visually represents what we call sort of the perceived glare. So when we look at those photos before, when you were standing away from the facility, the before and the after, this is meant to be more equate, essentially visually, how much glare do you perceive, what's that sense of light from the ground plane. And you can see that that glare gets down to next to nothing at the property line itself. When you're down in the greens and the yellows, for example, 500 or less is equal to equivalent of a 100 watt incandescent light bulb. So this does not take into account, I want to remind you, that it does not take into account the vegetation that is along that property line. This is if this was in an open field site. So this is in an open field site within 10 feet of the property line. We're down to less glare than a normal incandescent light bulb. But that doesn't take into fact that you've got a highly vegetated surface, trees, other bushes, etc., bamboo all along that.
Or less so in the winter.
Right.
So that's the field lighting consideration. There also was a question at the last meeting in regards to what facilities in the area had a comparable lighting system like this, so it can be seen in person. We talked with Muscle Lighting, and the closest one available would be in Arlington, Wakefield High School. They had the same lighting technology that we're proposing for this facility. All right, I'll start here and work my way up.
Can you remind us, the two things that I thought were interesting, I was thinking that the poles were actually inside the track, but they're not, because that actually produced more glare or lighting further afield.
Correct.
So can you remind us, and this does not light the track, so there's not nighttime track usage, it's field use only.
Correct. It'd be similar to this in that what we're trying to do is like the field trips, not the track. And you are correct. In the previous installations that we showed, one other consideration was moving these poles inside the track. We thought that sort of common sense would say moving those closer to the field surface itself would help reduce the perceived glare further out. I did not bring that slide, but those, you can download, I think, that older presentation. It did not have that effect. In fact, it made the glare, particularly on this west side, worse. And so that's why we went back to this concept.
Yes, but you're forgetting to say that the poles is got higher.
No, the poles, this is still at 60-foot height. That's all we're,
This is 60 feet?
that's all we've ever shown. That's the only thing we're allowed to do from zoning.
Yeah, this field is being lit to 5,700 Kelvin, is that correct? I think that's what you had in the document. And 5,700 Kelvins, Kelvin is a measure of blue and white light. It's essentially glare. And the American Medical Association, and I would be glad to share this with anybody who wants, has said that LED lights, anything greater than 3,000 would be damaging. Number one, there's a risk of breast cancer. Number two, also retinal damage. So the issue is, at 5,700, you've got tremendous amount of glare. You have, let me finish, you have more glare than FedEx Field, and you have more glare than that stadium. So from that perspective, that needs to be controlled.
Sir, this is Candela. It's not Kelvin, and this is a perceived glare map. So that Kelvin that you're talking about is not accurate.
If you have the document that you gave us that we got here on number one, if you turn to the page, and it says right here on the top that they give you heights at 60 feet, etc. And it also says that the LED, the Kelvins, is 5,700 with a CRI of 75. So 5,700 is above and beyond what the American Medical Association states. They said that 3,000 is comfortable. 5,700, you would have glare like you've never seen before, more glare than FedEx Field and more glare than that stadium. So how do you arrive at the fact that there's no glare?
All I can say is the documents that we provided show us that the candela and the foot candles meet what's required by zoning. They meet all player safety standards. I'm not familiar with the facts and figures that you're citing, so I cannot respond on
But
that.
I'll let you digest the American Medical Association report. They come out stating that anything more than 3,000 in the neighborhood is too much.
What I can say is, this is what the glare looks like from a facility with similar.
You're assuming certain contrast ratio, okay? This field out here is pitched, so from a contrast ratio, you cannot control glare. You can control spillage, which you can do from 80 feet or 70 feet, but glare is something that you can't predict, and it's very difficult. So I'm not sure what your information is. I'm just going by the ISND, and this is what they say. So from the point of view, anytime you have a black background, the contrast ratio is going to be in favor of glare, not in favor of being able to control glare.
Okay. Yes.
What's the full life cycle cost? I mean, you mentioned that the energy cost is lower, but in terms of maintainability, mean time between failure, so over the life cycle of this lighting system, what will it cost? Annually, seasonally?
I don't have that number to you.
When they did the presentation a couple years ago for Ham to put lights on, Musco came. How come they don't come and do the presentation?
Well, part of it is due to the fact that we'd like to competitively bid this project. We don't want to have a product rep premiere and present it to you, assuming that they have the project in hand.
But they did all of this, right?
These are images from other projects that they have done.
Right.
I've requested material from them to support what our project is done in the area.
Well, it would be nice, I think, to have them come. They could answer probably some of the questions that you
Sure.
have.
Can I just one more? I just wanted to add to your comparison of Wakefield versus T.C. Williams. T.C. Williams is 19 acres, that's the size of the field and the complex. Wakefield has an acreage of 47 acres. So you could put a field anywhere you wanted in Wakefield and not have an issue with lights. And basically what they've done in Wakefield, and also I think a better pitch is Yorktown. Yorktown, that field has been there for 50 years, and it's a better comparison.
But I guess what I would say, sir,
But
is that I asked
what they've done is
Musco-
they've excavated it. They've dug the ground out in order to decrease spillage and noise, and that's the difference between what is happening here and it is what is happening.
From a pure lighting technology standpoint, Musco directed us to Wakefield as the one that has the most recent comparable installation of the technology that goes into this project. Yes, sir.
I was going to ditto. I think it might be nice to have Musco here. They're the experts that do a fair amount of fields,
Sure.
and they could probably say that this design equals the design of the majority of schools in the state, around the country, and colleges and high schools, and so they can rest the concerns that, there's no safety factor with this lighting. If we can match the same lighting standards that are in the majority of fields and colleges and high schools in the area, which Musco does the majority of that work, they could answer that question.
I'd be happy to invite you to the next meeting. I will say candidly, I've spoken with them quite a bit about this project, that they would not be willing to put their name associated with it. They felt that in some way provided an unsafe condition for the players or would be detrimental to the community. They are in the business of selling sports lighting, and they don't want to be associated with a project that would somehow, put their, reputation in a detrimental situation. Yeah.
Okay. So the schematic, am I pronouncing that right? The schematic design they've already presented to the city council zoning, or to zoning. What height of the
60
poles
feet.
are they?
60 feet. See,
They're only 60 feet?
the same design that we are presenting to you is what was presented to the city.
Excuse me?
The same design that we're presenting to you is what was shared with the city. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Bill Cook. I work for City of Alexandria Planning and Zoning. As yet, we have not received any details of the lighting design. We only received the site plan and the building design. The concept one submission did not have the lighting details on that. So to our knowledge, it would would be 60, but I just wanted to clarify that we don't have that actual plan submission as of yet.
As of the full location.
I was gonna say, we met at your office last week and reviewed the entire process.
Correct, but the lighting plans weren't submitted with concept.
Correct. But we reviewed the 60-foot pole height and discussed the entire project,
That's
and it's
good.
our intention to submit that with the submission.
Excuse me, gentlemen, but I don't think it is 60 feet. I think, Mr. Cook, I've been talking to Roy Shannon, and I think you may have had more than 60 feet, 70 feet or 80 feet, at least in the document that I have right before me.
We do not have any such documents submitted to us.
Okay.
And we're bound by 60 feet from the city.
There's no possibility of going above 60 feet.
And you said that, and that's the truth. There's no way that this can be changed from 60 feet, is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Even if you wanted to go through zoning?
I can't go into what is. I just know that the rule is, the zoning ordinance is that we're not allowed anything above 50 feet. So we work with Musco to ensure that we have a design that meets all the criteria of zoning and player safety at 60-foot height. And they feel that it will perform even better than many other comparable facilities that don't have the current technology in this Mid-Atlantic area. Yes, ma'am.
Could you speak a little louder and slower? I have no idea what you're saying.
Okay.
It's sort of mumbled. I'm sorry, but it's.
Is there a particular part that you would like me to
You're much better now.
discuss?
Be even better with a microphone.
Is there a particular part of the project scope that you have a question about that you'd like me to review?
No, but just going forward, if you
Okay.
could be a little louder and a little slower, it would help everybody, I think.
I will do. Yes, sir.
I just had a question about like landscaping and hardscaping, especially along the property lines. There's a lot of questions about what the impact of light and sound would be, and you've talked about, without taking into effect current vegetation and hardscaping, et cetera. Is there a way to make that, or what are the challenges associated with making that part of the plan so that we can better understand how you're mitigating those effects or what the impacts could be to mitigate some of the effects? For instance, establishing more privacy for some people who sight lines to the field and are seeing activities that they don't otherwise want to see, whether it's extracurricular activities or actual athletic activities, just to help provide more privacy and sense of ownership to your neighbors.
We have not completed any sort of detailed study about enhancing landscaping along the property line. That said, given the comments that we've heard this evening about views into that area, into the back area, it's certainly something we can look into. But it has not been part of we've been focused on the building facilities and the field lighting only at this time. Our landscape architects would be more than happy to start to think about how that border could be enhanced, but it's not part of the project that we've been studying to date.
I agree, but I think there's a consensus that, there are some additional things we could do to help mitigate the effects of this that might help address some of these issues that otherwise aren't addressed architecturally or engineering-wise.
I think it's a good point.
I'd like to
Yes.
just say, in the last 10 years, they've planted twice. They've planted all kinds of different plants, and you go out and look at it now, half of them are dead, and they're still sitting there dead.
Well,
And because there's,
Ma'am, I'm not.
I know, I'm just
No,
saying,
I think there's
they've
elements of
tried.
this plan that aren't being presented that could be considered, that
They-
might help address some of the issues that you
but they
guys
have
rightly
tried,
bring
and
forward.
they plant them, and then they ignore them. So they're all dead. All the pine trees, or I'm gonna say 80% probably are all dead. I know they tried, but they don't maintain them. They think there's a irrigation system, and there's not. So there is a water problem along the property lines.
That's right.
Okay, so have there been any other options or plans for storage sheds and bathroom facilities?
Yes, we've looked at, I think, 6 or 7 different options in the previous couple meetings that we've had in the last several months.
And have they always been in the same location?
Generally, they've been on this side of the field, yes. Primarily, I don't have the full plan. On the other side of the field, there just isn't physically space to do so, of any facility of any side. The other given that we're currently working under is that the both bleachers are existing to the building. Yes, sir.
Yes, I just want to read from the first document that we received when we started this process. And I quote from it, it says, "The 60-foot mounting height requires having the poles right next to the field, which could cause playability issues for the players. Sports lighting fixtures in general are very intense, so the shorter the poles and the closer they are to the field of play definitely will make it harder to track a ball in flight, especially if the ball is moving right to left." So at 60 feet, this is telling me that this is a dangerous field. Danger by the fact that you could run into the pole, or danger from the fact that why are we playing the game if we can't see the ball? So at 60 feet, this, at least from this document right here, it doesn't work. So what magic have you created from this document here to what you're telling me now, that this field is playable and it's safe and everything is fine? When you came out and said that, it's dangerous.
I'm not sure which document you're referring to, but I will...
Musco, it's a Musco document. The first meeting. Elijah, can you
We
remember that?
presented 2 options. This was the
Yeah,
one where the
he's talking
poles
about-
were inside the
He's
field.
talking about the inside track.
So we did look at an option. I think we talked about it a little bit earlier, where we put the poles inside
But
the
it's
track.
not noted on there.
But that's not where we're headed because of the safety issues that you noted. We thought it was an option that we explored because we thought it would be to the benefit of the neighborhood to pull those poles as far away from the property line as possible. But after we did further analysis, it had compromises for both player safety, and in fact, it actually increased the amount of perceived glare across the property line. So we have not pushed forth that scheme.
In this diagram, that field that accompanies this diagram, all of the lighting poles are outside the track, just as they were in any other diagram that you showed us. So it doesn't say here that these are right next to the field. The location here is just outside the fence with the results.
I think the last presentation we gave, community presentation number 3, 2 or 3, we looked at different options. One of them was the one you're citing, and for the reasons that you're noting, we've moved away from that option.
It is counterintuitive on this pole placement, but
Yeah.
it's a little confusing, that's why I kind of brought it up.
Can you show me where those poles are again? You don't mind.
So here, 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 and here.
So they won't like the track, is that correct?
The lighting on the track, that is not the intent to light the track. So the lighting you would see would be similar to this. Is that the ends of the track, not at all. There may be some carryover on the edges of the track, but by the time you get to the stands, we're not trying to illuminate anything. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, this is my first meeting, so I apologize if this has been discussed previously, but has there been any impact study on how all of this will impact the surrounding neighborhoods?
Impact in which way, ma'am?
I mean, the lights, the sound, property value, any kind of impact study on how this is going to affect the surrounding neighborhood?
Our team has studied the impact of the lighting. How do we minimize any light trespass and perceived glare from the neighbors? We have not studied sound, and I cannot speak to any studies of property value.
So do you have any information on, whatever's being proposed now, how that's going to affect like the first row houses or, some distance out? If you went with this plan, with the people who live on the property line, are they going to have some kind of glare, or are they going to have zero? Are there numbers available for people to review?
There are. So this presentation will be posted. I know it's impossible, especially for Matt there, to read any of these numbers. We have the zoning requirements are pretty clear that we need to not have light trespass, any foot candles past. I think it's actually 3 feet above the grade plane, 7 feet from the property line. Has to be absolute zero, which we're achieving. So 3 feet off the ground, 7 feet from the property line, so 7 feet across. We're actually, what this diagram shows, we're getting 0 foot candles on the property line. If you were to take a light meter at the property line, 3 feet above, it would read 0. The other diagram that we showed was this one. This is the perceived glare. And this is, when you get into the darker greens, which it may be tough to see back there, That and the white line here is again the property line. The darker green is the amount of glare if you were to look at a normal 100-watt incandescent light bulb. So you can see that does start to come over the property line. But what this diagram doesn't take into fact is that there are trees here. This is assuming a flat, perfectly flat site with no obstructions.
And will the same thing be done, like the same analysis be done for sound?
We do not currently have the sound within our scope to analyze.
Is it because you're not doing the sound, or is it because you're just not doing an analysis?
We have not begun the design of the sound system.
It's not in the budget.
We do know that an AV system needs to be part of the project, but we have not begun. We've been focused on, again, the buildings and the lighting. You know, and the lighting is one of the primary concerns. Yes, ma'am.
I think also, I've read somewhere that trees on property lines and things like that need to be trimmed 6 feet high, so that for security reasons. So how does that affect the glare and everything on the property lines if you have to?
When you
have
say
trees?
required from a zoning standpoint, or?
Yeah, I think it's for security, the police like that, for security reasons, so that you can see through it and people can't hide.
That's something we'll have to discuss with the city and see how
And
we
then
go.
I have another question also. What about, this is all perceived glare. How do we know what the actual is going to be? We won't until it's up, correct?
I cannot say. Yes, sir.
Just one, I think you asked a very, very good question, and I have the statistics for you. Let's take Archbishop O'Connell. Basically O'Connell, they were going to install lights, et cetera, and basically they did an appraisal with 7 real estate agents. And the bottom line is, if your first row, it's a 16% kick in the face loss, okay? If you're 2 rows back, it goes down to 10%. And if 3 rows back, it goes down to 6%. So there is loss of value, there is loss of real estate value with anything that it comes into place. Fortunately,
Sir, is that like plan and lighting fixtures and hardscaping, landscaping, et cetera, to like?
Yes.
I mean, is that an apples to apples comparison? I'm not negating the fact that there is going to be an impact, but I'm just trying to gauge those numbers.
based on, well, this is what I had, 15 to 16%.
Based on what? The Bishop O'Connell plan,
Yes.
which was how compared to this?
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah,
Well, was it same lights, was it same pole height, was it same architectural
Yes.
considerations?
and the same issues with certain neighbors being too close, et cetera, et
And
cetera.
who made this analysis to bring these conclusions?
The 7 real estate
No,
agents.
who looked at, said, hey, Bishop O'Connell is like ACPS's TC Williams plan,
Oh, it's-
and
No,
I
no,
think
no.
we can assume that you're gonna see the same numbers.
Well, I'm just throwing this out as a number. The bottom line is, when all was said and done, the neighbors voted not to have it, and they never put lights on the field. But I can tell you that particular field is the most architecturally perfect field of any field that I've ever seen, and I've seen many, many fields. So they did it right, they excavated the land, it's 25 feet below grade, so if there was talk of any lights, and the neighbors voted against it, but this is a field that is great with sound too. And I think we're mitigating the idea of sound, because I talked to some people over at Washington and Lee, and Washington and Lee had their stadium there with lights 40 years ago. So the imprint of the school was already there. So if you purchased a house, or you bought land to buy a house, you knew what was coming. You knew that sports lighting was all part of this area. The woman told me categorically that the lights are terrible, but the noise is even worse. And so they're not even going to have a plan for noise. I think that's not correct. I think that's out of order. I think you need to have the whole thing in order to be able to go forward with this. Because going forward in a half-assed way is not going to help anybody. And that's the bottom line. So I'm looking forward to seeing some type of a noise issue so that we can all sit back and look at that. Because just looking at the lights is only part of the puzzle.
Sure, I think you're fair. I think the noise has to be accounted for. That is a critical element that's missing from the plan. And we've talked a lot about the impacts to the local neighboring communities. is there an analysis from ACPS side on what opening up the fields to more use, in this case, allows, and what's the impact on the greater community in terms of access for TC Williams students in sports, for the other parties that were involved? I noticed that ASA, the soccer association, was here, lacrosse, all the other sports, other the activities. Is there been an analysis on what the impact of additional lighting on the field will provide for the community as a whole? Just as a juxtaposition, because I'm not one of your neighbors, but I am a parent of a student here, and there's lots of advantages for me advocating for lights. So I just want that to be considered in terms of what are the other additional advantages.
We have not done an analysis yet, but in our last meeting with the city, we did have conversation about the program elements and what that could mean, and agreed that we want to look further into that, sort of capture everything that's going to be happening on the field and what it means programmatically for the school and possibly for the community. In terms of the sound discussion, we are going to get proposals from our architect for acoustician to look at the sound, and then we'll review that and take that into account.
I'd just like to say that I also have a student at this school, and I had one that graduated last year that played football. Initially, when I first moved into the house that my great-grandmother lived in, who changed my diapers in that very house, I had absolutely support for lights. And then the shock and the horror of actually what goes on behind that shed house and in concession stand pretty much changed my mind completely. One thing I do realize is that my son is graduating, he's gone to school. These kids go, they leave. They don't come, they don't stay here at TC Williams. So I've been through 15 graduations now. They leave. Guess what time my son plays football now? It's not at Friday night, it's Saturday during the day. When I went to college, games were Saturday during the day. So basically, the way I see this, we're kind of ahead of the curve by playing on Saturdays, a lot of the sporting events. However, I understand the need for lights. What I have a problem with is how come we didn't investigate other areas where there were lights previously, like at GW. There are 2 football fields with lights. There's public transportation. There are shops and stores.
There's neighbors there too.
Okay, Minnie Howard.
Not adjoining.
Not adjoining neighbors.
They
No,
are
no,
not
they're not
adjoining.
adjoining.
There's
Not
not a
adjoining.
single person that adjoins them.
It's mostly commercial, and it's
It
not
may be
adjoining.
across the street. They're not adjoining.
They're not. If you
Do you
go
know
look
what
at those
adjoining
fields,
means?
It's a road.
There's a road in between those houses and stuff.
there is a
They're not
road.
adjoining.
But needless to say, there are other places. Minnie Howard is lit. It's lit. That field is lit, okay? And it is surrounded by what? Commercial property. Okay? There's a couple townhouses, but it's already lit. All you gotta do is, there's tennis courts that were lit, there's that football field that is lit. That could have been a wonderful stadium. And if the city actually really wants a stadium for all of the community to use at night, during the day, 2 o'clock in the morning, I don't care. There could have been a place, because there are commercial places now in the city that aren't being used, that could have been procured specifically for that stadium. They were set to do that when they thought that the Redskins or Washington was coming to the area. They were set to do that. But once that Washington decided, no, we'll go to Richmond, that got nixed. So I'm just trying to figure out why other options weren't explored, especially when, again, there were schools that were already lit, like GW. And then there was a school behind GW called Parker Gray that was also lit. So there were 2 football fields lit up right there, and those houses were there while they were lit. As well as Minnie Howard, still lit. Could have pulled your resources, used a little practicality, and maybe perhaps created a field there, because it's not about me not wanting the students to have Friday night lights. It isn't about that. But the problem is, there's no policing of the area. You're putting toilets behind my house at this point. That land that this football field is on belonged to my great-grandmother, and it was taken by eminent domain. And I can tell you that it wasn't fair market value that they paid her, because all of her children had to raise money to buy the house that I currently live in. And she had acres. She had acres of property that they took.
Well, you're talking about acres of property, all of this belonged to our families.
And now you're asking us to give up yet some more by putting lights and further devalue the property that was taken from us from the beginning. So just looking at this field hurts my feelings in my heart. Just talking about lights hurts my feelings in my heart. Now looking at the fact that I might have toilets behind the house that my grandmother lived in is just a complete insult and slap in the face, because the only reason why that field is there is because the superintendent at the time was a racist. He figured the best final slap and insult we could do is take the land from the only landowning African Americans in the community who couldn't buy any place else because of restrictive covenants. Okay? So they couldn't buy any place else. So this is where they bought. Let's just take their land and build a school. Oh, and by the way, someone's going to have to sue me in order for their children to go if they're of color. And that's exactly what happened. That person got fired because she was a cook at this school. She got fired because she dared to sue because she wanted her children to matriculate there. But now we want to further just drive the property value down and add insult to injury. Let's now add lights. So you have stepped into a big vat of boiling oil. You don't even know, and I feel bad for you. But honestly, we need to come up with some other plan. We really do, because this is just completely an insult to the remaining African Americans that still live here. My family has been in this city for 200 plus years. And we have been diminished and devalued, and it's still continuing to this day. And it needs to end. It needs to end now.
And I back her. You know, she has said it all. So, I mean, what you promised,
before we
there
wrap
was
up,
a legal document saying that you would not put any lights on feet. We were already disrespected, dishonored enough. And then, you know, when you put the initial school here, then you came back in 2004 and enlarged it, and with the specification that there would be no lights on any of the stadiums here. And now, here you are again. Now you're trying to, you're imposing on us, and you want to put lights shining in our homes. You want to decrease the value. I know it's not your fault. You want to decrease the value of our property, but that's what we're going through. We're the fourth and fifth generation of African American families that were here. The only African American homeowners community back in the 1800s, and the only one today. And for historic value, leave us alone. That's how we feel. Leave us the heck alone.
Enough already.
You know. But yet we're sitting here, you're talking about lights because you all want to play football. You want the kids to play football. And I know even when I was in college, the kids played football Saturday during the day. So what's the big deal anyway?
And I mean, and this is where we differ. Sure, play Friday night. But I already know that this field is going to be used for more than just the students. I already know that. Because you got ASA sending out petitions to their parents, and don't think I'm not privy to that information. Alexandria Lacrosse, although they already have a lit field because they play at Minnie Howard. My child played there. My child played ASA. I have two children that have been very active in this community with sports. They play football, basketball, lacrosse, all of it. You name every sport, baseball, and they have played it, okay? So there are other avenues and other ways to go about this. You got development happening left and right, new condos coming up, new apartments coming up. This school is about to be overcrowded, if it isn't already, because you got 3 trailers out front, and we're focusing on that? Really? We're focusing on that? We gotta house these kids.
I think there's one context too, though, that has to be brought up, that there's already disadvantages from the school. Girls softball plays off-site, boys baseball plays off-site, lacrosse plays off-site. So a normal high school would have 5 lit fields here.
And they have about 50 acres.
Right, but I mean, a normal high school would have all those fields, and TC's never had that.
Because you got 19 acres, because you had a racist superintendent decided to take as many acreage as they could from the landowning African Americans, just to slap them in the face and build a school that they didn't want these kids to attend initially. I can say it because it's a fact and it's in newspapers. It's not made up. Don't you? So my point is, if we are really going to do this, then we really need to find a good place, because it's not going to be just for the school. It's going to be for the entire city. So let's find a place for the entire city. Yes, the softball team plays off campus. Yes, the baseball team plays off campus, because we're landlocked.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's my point. I'm sure if there was an opportunity, and there may be in the future, if there's an opportunity to build a city stadium somewhere else other than the high school, they still need to be able to practice. They still need to be able to do things like other normal high schools. So yes, there's been some decisions made, right, wrong, or indifferent in the 70s that put the school
70s
here
now, darling.
and did it again later. But you know, there's disadvantage, there's pros and cons to everything. And
So we're supposed to just lump it? Is that what you're telling us?
No.
Get over it, get past it,
I'm not telling you
and just
anything.
accept it?
I'm
Is that,
not
because that's what
telling
I'm
you.
hearing.
No, I'm
The
just-
justification is, well, I mean, yeah, there were some bad decisions, but we need to move forward with what we want to do and screw the property value you have, because we've screwed you in the past, so just continue to bend over. That's what I'm hearing.
That's
No,
not what
I'm not
anybody
saying
thinks.
that.
And
You're not saying it, but that's what I'm
That's
hearing.
not what anybody thinks, and nobody wants that
It's
for
not what
anyone.
they think, but that's what I'm hearing.
I'm sorry,
You-
sorry.
you
it's
understand
not
what I'm saying?
The message is not coming across properly.
There are many,
And that the
many.
property values are something that is, you're basing on another city, another field, another neighborhood,
It
et
is
cetera.
a known fact that as long as there are lights, as long as there's a property that lives by a school that has lights, their property value is decreased. That's just fact. It's not just theory.
I don't
It is
think-
fact.
I don't agree that that's a fact.
That is
I'm
fact.
sure that
You can go look at the property values of every single
It's not just the lights,
house
it's the
next to
school.
a high school that is lit, and look at the property values of the same houses in the same city that doesn't have lights, and I can promise you, their value will be higher than the ones that live next to the school with lights. That's just a fact.
Adrian, let me just, here's the bottom line. And all my investigations and all my time spending on part of this, if in fact the school put their footprint down first, then everybody that was going to bought knowing the risk of nighttime sports, nighttime activities, recreational use. This particular field here and the neighborhood surrounding it, 99% of this neighborhood was built, okay, before this school was ever made. Okay, 99% of the school, of the houses were occupied. This is used, this is different. This is different than anything in the neighborhood. So, if you go ahead and have the neighborhood built out, and then you drop a school in the middle of it, that becomes an issue. And at no point in time was anybody ever aware of the fact that Mayor Yule wanted lights on this field, that the technology had changed, and all that other moran. Okay, so the bottom line is there would be significant property loss to the Woods neighborhood based upon the fact that this was never expected and the land was assessed at a point, the fact that there would be no lights at all. And so that's the bottom line. So your question with lights, with depreciation of property, has to do with who was there first. If the school was there first, the neighbors know the bottom line. If the neighborhood was there and the school comes and puts lights on, property values go down. That's the basic economics.
That's your understanding.
No, that is the
That
fact.
is your understanding.
You just go ahead and
I'll
Google
email
it.
you all the statistics that you want to say that I'm exactly right. Well, how do you know? How do you know? Have you done any investigative work?
Done the research.
You're just coming from gut feeling. I'm just telling you, that's not the truth.
Can I just, so the other factor in this involved is, if you have a student who's involved at TC Williams and is in athletics, depending on what sport they are, you don't see them until they come home until about 9:30. All right, and that is because of the lack of fields and lighting in the fall and the spring, early spring, in the winter, in the, later spring, obviously it's much easier with the daylight change. I don't see my freshman daughter until 9:30 at night. And she spends a significant part of her day moving from location to location by bus or whatever, which is an added expense to ACPS, to be able to achieve those kind of extracurricular activities that we all agree that we want for our students at TC Williams. Whether you have students there or have had students, or you want future property owners to want to come to our community to participate in those activities. Is there a realistic proposal going forward to help alleviate the field space and the lack of field space for all these activities that, is respectful of the history of the neighborhood? Because I think all of us understand what happened, and I'm not minimizing at all the impacts on your neighborhood. But we really need to look at these. And I will say, going to GW, I have students at GW now. That's a huge administrative burden both on ACPS and on parents. It's a cost on ACPS, and that's impacts your taxes. I mean,
How much is this?
well, ma'am,
Just saying, cost.
ma'am, I respect it, but locating these facilities at the place where the predominant number of students are and being able to spread it across the number of athletic opportunities that these fields will provide, in addition to other community organizations, I think that needs to be considered.
I think, what I've heard tonight is that, a small segment of the Alexandria community is expected to bear the brunt of something that's going to benefit the whole community. And it seems like there hasn't been adequate, research to tell these residents that are going to be impacted what that impact is. Is there going to be sound impact? There's been some study on light. There's some concern about property value. I think that when you propose something like this, you have to be able to come to the people and say, this is what we expect the burden to be. Can you get behind it? It feels like the information might be kind of given out piecemeal, and people can't really kind of get behind something that they don't really understand what the impact is going to be. And to say that it's not going to be an impact, there won't be an impact or a negative impact, I don't think anybody can really say that at this point because we're not there yet.
I've gone to the long-range facilities plan. At one of the meetings, it was a school board member, suggested that maybe they should tear down Minnie Howard. That was a great idea. Tear down Minnie Howard and make that a sports complex. And from there, and then expand, he said to take down the garage at TC and make that a garage and a building on top and expand TC instead of building a second campus down there. Personally, I thought it was a pretty good idea. You could still have a practice field back here. You would have a huge complex up there, and maybe, they said maybe do art and music or something up there. And then the other option, of course, was GW. To make GW a high school and expand that there and make Jefferson Houston a middle school. So I think there are other ideas.
Let me say, the long-range facilities plan is in process, and it will continue to be in process, because we're growing 300 to 500 students a year. TC Williams now, between this building and Minnie Howard, is 4,000 students. And so to put another building where the parking garage is, it's not going to address the crowding. We need another high school. Yes, we need another high school.
Okay, so how is this addressing that?
This is not.
Okay.
This is not. No. And I believe me, everything you said tonight, it hurts. And nobody is negating how wrong all of that was.
It still is wrong. See, the problem is, it's not past tense.
But
it is wrong. I'm looking at these plans and it's just even
But let me
worse.
finish. I think you're right. She left.
Yeah.
That there is more research to do. We do, and I hate this column. there is more research to do. We do need to talk to real estate agents and find out what that is. We need to look at, we need to have the lighting people in. We need to have sound people in. You need more information. And so that's what we need to do.
We also need to have more options.
And I understand that, I think my immediate thought after going through all of this was, what about Chicopin itself? And I'm hearing that that's federal property, open space or something?
No, that's city property.
Well, then
It's, some of it is
why
open
can't
space, but
Well,
it's
then why
cities
couldn't we
open
consider
space.
putting the football field at Chicopin?
I will tell you, and what I didn't tell you when I came in here tonight, I worked in Alexandria 13 years ago. I spent 24 years here. And when we were planning this building, this new building, that was the Chinkopin location was looked at, but because of what's the word I want? The site, because of the hilliness of it and what it does at the other end of the park, it was pretty exorbitant to do anything.
But
like
it was
that.
easier, so it's easier to inconvenience us again.
Building this school, I'm not gonna change your perception of it. The school's here.
Yeah, I know what I'm talking about, the field, the football field.
And that's what I said, that's why we need to have more information. And we need to give you more information. And we're not gonna solve this tonight.
So is Chinkopin an option to put the football field in that big open, why?
No, because that is the city's, that's their open space.
Yeah, that was given to
And,
them from
and
the federal
because
government.
of,
And
and
there's no way.
For open space, no.
You couldn't make a change?
Can't build on it.
well, and I can't, you know what, I can't give you a definitive answer on that tonight. If we're looking at other options, it's a question we can get to the city. Our friend from zoning is here.
But he's getting a lot.
I have no information about the Chickapin property.
I think it was federal money gave them the land to keep it as open space always, and they're not supposed to build on it. That was my idea.
Well, there are a number of areas around the city that are open space that to my knowledge, the city has the option to change it. I mean, there are areas that have a lot of trees or, whatever, but they're considered open space. There's more than just this.
I have gone to all of the high schools around here. I've looked at every single one of them, and there is none smaller than that. They're all huge properties which can take the lights, which the neighbors are not adjoining. They have streets between them, and all of them. I'm gonna say there's maybe one or two houses anywhere, all in Virginia, in Arlington, all of them, they at least have a street in between them. If it is adjoining, there's one house on Wakefield or a couple, maybe two houses, it's 30 feet below grade. So the lights don't shine over that way. So there are differences in some of these schools. They came once and told us that Yorktown was a perfect example to TC. You go over to Yorktown, that sits below grade. 40 feet. It's unbelievable. You just can't believe. So the light doesn't glare out or trespass as others do that are flat. So when you go to a field next, look at it and look at the surrounding houses. There are no houses that adjoin, and our backyards are right next to the field. Right next to the field, okay? And Andrea's is actually,
Yeah.
that little shed is only a foot away from her.
We're not acres away. We are literally.
And no one is complaining about the kids, no one complains about the football games or anything like that. It's not that. It is not that at all. It is really going to be the after use of Parks and Rec, the noise, lights till 10 o'clock. Do you know what that does to your sleep? If you have kids that have to go to bed, you can't. You cannot go to sleep. So there's nothing against, and I'm sorry that this field And all of the other fields you have to drive to. But I'm gonna tell you, the #1 football school in this whole area, which is Tabitha probably, does have lights, but, this field, when you go look at another field, you look at the surrounding area around it and see how much space there is. They can't move the toilets because there's nowhere to move it, there's no space. They can't move this over there, they can't even move the scoreboard because there's no space. So there is no space, go look at it. That's all I ask.
Actually, we can move the scoreboard
Yeah. Where?
to the other end of the field.
I don't know, because there's high jump there or something.
But
No,
there,
there's a retaining wall.
there are alternatives. GW had a stadium that used to sit 15,000 people. Now, this, the position of that field is near commercial, near the metro, it's right in the back of the commercial.
Yeah, I know exactly.
So what about Cameron? Okay, the wave pool, okay? There's plans there for a field house there, $17 million. You get a field house, you get 7 different fields. Max Slover already has that drawn up. He's been sitting on it for a while. So there are issues, there are other places.
Okay, let me say this, we're not gonna
No, we're
solve
not.
this
No.
tonight.
No.
We hear you, we've recorded you, we know what you said, and this needs to go back for further thought and consideration.
Thank
And
you.
certainly there's more information that you need. So we're not gonna solve it tonight, but I do hear you. Thank you. Thank you for being